Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metal Nation. Today we're chatting with noted photographer, filmmaker, and modern-day Renaissance man, Rob Fenn. How's everything in your world?
Things are good. How about yourself, sir?
Oh, absolutely wonderful. This is kind of a strange conversation to have. I'm used to talking to the people that you photograph, Lizzie Hale and Rob Zombie and whatnot. So this will be a different sort of conversation. So,
well, that's good. Did the PR people warn you, though? I got a mouth like a trucker, face like a prom queen.
Works for me. That sounds perfect. So you have so many things going on all the time. The photography, the record label, your record store / barbershop / coffee shop, and on and on. How do you juggle all of that?
Well, I'm finding out I don't, so we're getting a little more organized and just try to keep it going, always thinking, always moving forward. And when you do what you love, it's kind of easy to do. Like last night, I got the opportunity to go photograph Alice in Chains, which was just phenomenal. A little club here in Utah called the Depot. I guess it was not too little, but little for Alice in Chains type of thing.
Right.
And it's just amazing to see that band still just phenomenal. If you haven't seen this tour, go do it. It's a must-see.
You're usually behind the lens, as we said, and I sort of wanted to turn that around for a few minutes and introduce the world to you a little bit. This year marks the end of your first decade as a professional photographer. You've done more in that time than most achieve in a career, including the creations and releases of hardcover photo books for Rob Zombie, Hailstorm, and most recently Rise Against. When and why did you first pick up the camera?
I come from a radio background. I was a radio DJ, and then I started doing the creative service part of it, like the commercials you hear between songs and stuff. And I got out of it, and I opened up a nightclub. And if you ever want to lose money, go ahead and do that. And then I decided I wanted to get back into radio, and I wanted to do an online magazine that had a radio station built in. And this was back, I want to say 2008 is when I was going to do it. And I had no money. I needed to get some investors, so I hit up some friends to get a photo pass to get some pictures to build this fake website for the investors. And a buddy of mine at Warner Brothers got me a photo pass to film Disturbed, and then he got me another photo pass to film Avenged Sevenfold. So I borrowed a camera from a friend at the paper. I had no idea what I was doing, and I went and shot Disturbed and pretended I knew what I was doing. And the worst photo you've ever seen someone take with an iPhone was better than what I took of Disturbed. You couldn't even tell it was Disturbed. So I was looking at this going, well, I better just buy these photos for this thing. But I really loved Avenged Sevenfold and wanted to see the show. And with the photo pass, you got to go in that pit. So I'm like, well, I'm going to still go. So I get there. I get in the pit, but I can't, just stand there. So I just looked at the show through the lens, and I'd snap off when I seen something cool here and there, but didn't think about it. I didn't even look at the photos for a couple of weeks, and I seen one of Brian's Sinister Gates that just blew me away. I was like, holy shit, I took that. And so I wanted to figure out how to make a living at that, because there's a ton of people. I don't know if you're familiar with the photography part of the business, but there's about 5 or 6 photographers per show in that pit.
Oh yeah.
And I figured they were getting paid. Well, none of them were. And I was like, well, I want to do this full time. This equipment's expensive. So I got a business plan and kind of marketed myself. Instead of marketing myself as a photographer, I done it as like a band would do. I done the merch, I done all that kind of stuff, and started building the relationships. And one thing led to another. 2 years after that, I was on tour with Avenged Sevenfold, telling their tour manager this long, drawn-out story I just bored you guys with. And I showed him the picture I took at Sinister that kicked it all off. He's like, oh, we know that one. I'm like, bullshit. Put it on Facebook once. And apparently they had a friend in Texas who's a tattoo artist, and a girl wanted a picture of Brian on her arm. They didn't have one, so he Googled his name, picked my picture, so some chick's running around the country with that first photo I took tattooed on her arm. And it just, ever since then, it's just blown me away how small of a world it is in the entertainment world. That's kind of how I started.
And you still never got paid for that photo.
You know what? I don't, man. I know, like, with photographers and stuff, that, like, the photo credits and I get all of it, but, I don't care if a band takes one of my photos and puts it on Instagram and doesn't say it's a Rob Fenn photo, because I'll just regram it and say it's mine. The best advice I can give everybody is just don't sweat the little shit. Like, the relationships are the most important thing. And this is coming from a guy that does this for a living now. Like, I don't know how I got here, and I hope I can keep staying here because I love it. Like you said, I just released that Rise Against book this year, and those guys are some of my favorite humans ever. I spent 4 years with them, chasing them all over the world and meeting all their fans, and that's the coolest thing about music is how, it's just a community that brings everyone together, and to be able to photograph that's pretty special to me.
Yeah, I would imagine, and I've always loved the shots that you take, especially the candid ones. I'm a huge, I was fortunate enough to get to meet Lizzie and Joe and Josh and RJ early on in their careers, and they're just incredible people. And I used to see the photos that you took of them, and you would get these incredible candid shots that really captured their personality and stuff. And what's that experience like for you when you capture that candid moment or that stage, on stage or behind the scenes?
It's surreal, and it's still surreal to this day. I mean, an example, and especially with that band, we were in Chicago, and we were playing the show, and it started to rain. And when I mean it started to rain, it was a nice sunny day, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. And the promoter of the show, who was supposed to cancel it in case the weather got bad, was nowhere to be found. He was backstage doing something. So Hellstorm played their entire set except for the very last song in this torrential downpour. And I got a shot of Lizzie holding her guitar up in the air during one of the songs. It's just, to me, I mean, I took this thing, I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it. I took it back in 2012, and it's hanging in my shop, and every time I see it, it just triggers that memory. And the next day, I lost the camera because of that. It was so much water. We had to get humidifiers to take all the water out, all the equipment. And if I remember, it was like 8 gallons of water got sucked back out of this equipment. Yeah, it's just one of those moments that all of us that was involved in that cherish, and the fact that we got to take pictures of it and catch all of that it's just surreal. And it's in the book. I did do that book with Hellstorm called To Hell and Back. It's one of my favorite pictures in the book.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I came up admiring photographers like Ross Halfin, Niels Lozauer, and Bob Gruen. You sounded like you sort of came to it on your own, but did you have some photographers that sort of inspired you, or were you just driven simply by your own creative eye?
I think I was driven by music. I admire quite a few of them, that whole list that you just said, and I'd say my favorite one is Jim Marshall. Like, that dude, he caught stuff that no one could get. I've just never seen anyone match him. And then I do a lot of work. I actually own a record label as well.
Right.
And one of the bands on my label is the Boxmasters, who the lead singer is Billy Bob Thornton, the actor.
Yep.
And Billy knew Jim Marshall very well. First time I went to Billy's house, I walk in, and it's like a Jim Marshall museum. It's so cool. He's got pictures that's never been released and stuff. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, how does he get this shit? And Billy said Jim had this knack of making you feel comfortable. Like, they'd be backstage, and Jim would walk in and ask where the whiskey was, and you'd point to where the whiskey was, and he'd take your picture point because you didn't even know he was going to do it. And that's how Jim got all those. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he's the guy that got Johnny Cash flipping the bird. It's been stolen everywhere, That's Jim Marshall. The dude he could capture everything. It was amazing. And so, yeah, he's the one I really like.
All of the photographers that do work for us constantly lament limited lighting on stage, backlighting, LEDs, and so forth. I know you don't do the clubs that often. You're more the big stage arena stuff, but bands like Seether, Seven Dust, Breaking Benjamin, they have notoriously non-photographer-friendly lights. What are the biggest challenges you've faced as a live music photographer, and what tricks have you learned to overcome those obstacles?
Well, you ever seen a Rob Zombie show?
Oh, yeah.
It's all red light and all that. They're not friendly to the camera. Here's the thing, and this answer is kind of a cop-out. I get it, but it's the truth. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how the camera works. I don't understand the f-stops or all of that kind of stuff. I just kind of I started shooting in clubs and all the low light. I had the shitty camera that wouldn't do all these high ISO things to where it would bring it up. So I kind of learned to work with what I had, which was great because it made me learn how to do it, I guess. And these big arena shows and stuff like that, the light still isn't. It's just kind of, you just kind of go with it, you know. Some shows are good, some shows not so much and stuff. But I've learned a few tricks. You try to get, I think the thing that works for me, because like I said, I really don't know the technical aspect of it, is I just love the music in the show. Like, I love the people I shoot. And I've noticed if I have to go shoot someone that I'm not into, the photos are not as good as they would be if I'm really into that band, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely makes sense. So, now, you've also done some film work as well. Did you find that one type of photography, like video versus still photography, one is more gratifying or more challenging than the other?
Well, the Hollywood world is amazing and a big pain in the ass all at the same time. I'm currently doing a couple film projects. The positive part of it that I found, I love photography. I've got a couple other book projects that are going on right now, and I'm never going to quit doing that. But the film part of it, what really blew me away was anything that my fucked up mind can think of, we can do. There's a dude out there that can do it. Like, I've got this one project with a huge car chase scene in it that's kind of, basically, I'm really into fast cars and old beefed up motors and shit like that. I'm kind of a gearhead. And so when I wrote this script, I wanted it to be like one of those 70s movies where they didn't have all the technology to make it look cool. And I found this company in California that has a Porsche SUV with a Russian camera arm on it, that this thing will do 100 miles an hour and chase anything, and seat 7 people in there to work all the camera stuff. So the cool thing about film is if your imagination can be there, there's a way to do it. And that's what I'm very fascinated about. But as far as the photography, the thing that I've always been fascinated about and loved is just the timeless moment. It's like music. Music has that. Whether it's good or bad, it can trigger a memory. You hear a song maybe your grandma used to play when you were a kid, you'll remember your grandma. You hear a song of a happy moment in your life, you're going to remember that every time. And for me, photography is that same way. Like I said, that one with Lizzie in the rain, I see it, I remember that day right off. I've got one in my shop hanging of Lemmy that I took when we were in Hollywood, and it was just a really cool day for me. So every morning I have my coffee with Lemmy, and it's just that good feeling. So it's they're both two different animals, but both very gratifying, to answer your question in a long-winded way.
Well, and speaking of animals, you're a massive animal lover as well. Tell us about your work with Best Friends Animal Shelter and how others can help and get involved with that.
Oh, right. I appreciate that. I own I don't own, she owns me. I guess you shouldn't say you own anything, but I have a pit bull Great Dane named Bella that I adopted when she was 10 months, and she just changed my life. Like, I think everyone should have a pet because it's just one of those, pets are so unconditional. And so I kind of wanted to get involved and kind of give back. So what I do now is, and I looked at a bunch of charities, and Best Friends was the one I really kind of gravitated to. I really get behind what they're doing. They're a business. They reach out to a lot of people, and they save a lot of animals, and they're a no-kill shelter. And that was pretty big in my book. So once a week, I release a new print, and then we donate the proceeds to Best Friend. And it works out to where, you know, every print sold will get one dog out of a kill shelter and put them into a new shelter, which is cool. And so that's how that all came about.
And they can get involved in that?
Yeah, they can either buy the print, or you can just donate to Best Friends or your local animal shelter, you know. Just look into it and do the research. You know, it's not like getting your news off of fucking Facebook and going with whatever someone says. Take a half hour and get a real one.
Is that on the robfenn.com website, or is it?
Yeah, they can do on the Rob Fenn site right now. I believe this week's Corey Taylor. I probably should know that.
It is.
We're getting ready to release another one. So if you want, you can get the one of Corey Taylor that I shot that Columbus, Ohio. It's one of my favorite photos. He was with Stone Sour, and that show was they just crushed it. It was such a good time. And it actually was on my birthday, so I shot that picture on my birthday. So it's a little extra special.
There you go. And as you alluded to earlier, you started, I think it was a couple of years ago, you launched your own record label, NDR. What can you tell us about that?
That's a hillbilly just putting his money where his mouth is. I've been in the music business since I was 15, and I'm the guy that will bitch about, if I see that it's not working right. Ever since I was 18 years old, I wanted my own record label. I mean, I've just been in music and just loved it. And as we all know now, the music business is the wild, wild west.
Right.
And there's a lot of shit I don't like about it. And it's not that it's bad or wrong or I know what I'm doing. It's just I don't like it. I'm a firm believer that, Napster killed the whole industry, but it also sparked it. And then I believe that the record companies and radio and everyone else that used to get along don't anymore. And that's the big problem. And iTunes came in and all that kind of stuff. And if you had 3 hours, I'd get on my soapbox and bitch about a lot of stuff. The bottom line is my record label, we don't do any digital. That's why it's called NDR. It's called No Download Required. And so I started it that way. I only have 2 bands on it. I've turned down a couple, and I just don't think that people get behind bands anymore and build them as a record label.
Right.
I think they just will sign 25 bands, put a couple dollars into them, throw it to the wall, and see what sticks. And I know people have the misconception that record companies are evil and all this, but one thing that they did do is they weeded out the bullshit. So, I mean, now, what was the last new band that you discovered that's amazing?
We talked about them already, and I've told them this multiple times. I had given up on rock and roll until Hailstorm came along, and that revived my love for music again. So
yeah, and it's very few. Back in the day, you could hear about it, a couple a month. There'd be someone that you could check out, and that's where I got all scared on it because I don't know where to hear new music. It's like, where's the next Rolling Stones? There's just not. And that's what scared the shit out of me. So my label, we don't do, I just done it, always wanted it. I done it for me. And the bands I work with do it for the love of music and for them. I mean, one of them, like I said, Billy Bob Thornton's the lead singer. This is an Oscar-winning grant. I don't know how much awards this dude has, and I always forget how famous he is because he's so cool. But we just done a tour that was 40 shows, 6 weeks, 13 of us, including him, on the bus, and just grinding it out, playing all these places. We had 5 days off, and the 5 days we did have off were spent in bowling alleys or Applebee's, which was crazy. And it was a great time. It was just like old school rock and roll again. And the label's good. I mean, our next release that we have with the Boxmasters, Jeff Emmerich, that recorded the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper and the White Album, produced it. It's just not a novelty thing, and that's what's cool. And my other band, since you like Hellstorm, I'll fill you in on this, is Orange Blossom Special, and their album drops next year. The first single's called Abracadabra, and Joe from Hellstorm does the lead on it.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, yeah, they're a 3-piece that just smash. They're amazing. And so it's fun for me because it's a passion, but it's also good to see that music still is out there. It's just harder to find. It's harder to go to shows and see all the cell phones and shit up in the air instead of people actually watching the show.
Right.
And it's not that that's wrong for people. I get it. It's just if you could see, have you been to a zombie show lately, a Rob Zombie one?
Yeah, he was here not too long ago.
Well, one of my favorite things is during Thunder Kiss, he asked everyone to put the cell phone away because you can't clap with one hand.
Yeah.
And majority of the places we go to, they do because it's only 3 minutes. And the next time you're at the zombie show, watch the crowd on that song. It's like it was back in the day where everyone just loses their mind and has the time of their life and stuff. And that's what music's supposed to be about. I just was at the Ozzy show, and luckily we were on the front row rail for Ozzy, which for me, I was like in high school again. I was just losing my mind. I didn't shoot the show. I went there as a fan, and my fiance was just dying because she's never seen me really act that way. And I'm always working at these places. But I told her, I'm like, this is what music's about, is, losing your mind, singing along, having a great time. It's for 2 hours. You get to forget about all your problems. And that's why I go to concerts.
It's funny. I was just talking to Craig Goldie the other day about Dio and Rainbow in the past and the glory of all of that. And I remember walking into Odyssey Records in Salt Lake City, and I saw the Rain.
Right on.
Yeah, I saw the Rain. I think it's the only record store we had. And I saw Rainbow's On Stage album, and I just thought it was so cool, and I bought it just for the album cover. And that's how we discovered music back then. It was album covers and records and through friends and going to concerts and seeing a band that opened that we had never seen before. And that's the magic of it. And that's why I'm so excited you have Cut and Scratch, you know, your own place where people can actually buy records, because it's going away so fast.
Yeah, I don't know if they can buy records. That it's kind of funny because it's like they're like my children. I get pissed off when people buy them. So, my barber and my fiance, they're like, you do know you got to sell these, right? And I'm just like, yeah, but I just don't want to. Like, for me, I order new records every Tuesday, so it's like a kid on Christmas with, you know, I get to buy whatever I want. And then they come in and I get to unwrap them and stuff and then put them on display. But record store day is the hard one for me because we don't get a big selection of all of them. And so when people are coming in and grabbing the ones that I wanted, I'm just like, oh, shit, don't take that one. Don't take that one. But I still let them. They still get to buy them and stuff. I just have a hard time letting them go, because the whole reason that store came about is ever since I was like 5, I wanted a record store. I thought they were the coolest place ever. And they just don't make the money. And I was sitting there one day, and I'm like, well, you can't download a haircut on Amazon. So I got a barber, threw them in there, and it took off from there. Put the coffee shop in just because I wanted the discount on coffee. And it kind of worked out.
You're like living the life, my friend. You got your record label you wanted, you got your record store, you're on tour with the biggest bands, the ones that you love and like to spend time with, you're making movies, you got Bella, you got everything, man. And I appreciate your giving us a few minutes to chat about all of it.
I appreciate you letting me, sir.